Right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Since it's 12 o'clock, we're delighted and welcome to this webinar on FNOL. That's First Notification of Loss and how to submit a claim online through the Lorega online system. My co-presenter today is Gaynor Sampson, and Gaynor's there. She is going to take you through step by step how to submit a claim online, and she will probably be the first person you communicate with when having to report a claim to Lorega. Gaynor's had many years' experience as a claims manager, having worked for a large broker in the Northampton area, and we were thrilled when she joined us. I think it's nearly a couple of years ago now, how time flies.
It is, yeah.
So welcome, because this is actually Gaynor's first technical webinar with myself and Jackson. Now, Jessica Handyside, our marketing manager, is online as well. She's going to be managing the questions. So if you have a question, please use the chat online, and she will probably stop myself or Gaynor as and when required. But please bear in mind at the very end, we'll do a question and answer session. So right, let's get started, shall we? And just to go through the agenda, I will start with just chatting about Lorega and loss recovery insurance very briefly, because as I say, you've joined this morning to really talk about the process of having to report a claim to Lorega. We will touch on after the event claims, because you still have to report an after the event claim to ourselves and how you do that. But we'll touch on what you can do after this webinar to enhance your education on this subject. And as I say, we'll take questions throughout, but also at the very end of the session. So the learning objectives. Hopefully by the end of this session, you will understand why Lorega is the right choice, why you have chosen to work with Lorega, and how you can transact and report claims online, how you report the after the event claims, and let's start with working with Lorega. And what I would like to say is, we've been around, as a lot of you will already know myself or one of my colleagues in the north or the south, and we've been around for over 35 years now. We're very proud of the fact that we've had 5-star ranking and in the #1 in the Insurance Times Broker Service Survey for 3 or 4 years as an insurer, and then more recently as an MGA. And also we've achieved chartered status in every part of our business. That's for Lorega Solutions, who are the claim side, as well as the underwriting and sales side. And what's great is we have a 95% overall satisfaction rate from policyholders who've had to make a claim in the last 5 years. So that tells you a lot about the service you're getting when you've sold the policy. So I'm just going to touch on the fact that a lot of people on this call this morning will have sold a loss recovery insurance policy. You've probably had training from myself or Andy or Richard, and you will understand that the policy covers and pays for the cost of a professional loss adjuster to help prepare, negotiate and settle property claims and losses above £5,000. That's property MD and BI losses above £5,000. The adjusters that we use are chartered loss adjusters, and I mentioned Lorega Solutions, who are our qualified Lorega-owned loss adjusting company, who are there to provide your client and yourselves with unlimited expert assistance and advice on claims. The service, we have a helpline 24 hours, 7 days a week, and we help with losses, as I say, with above 5,000, but there's no limit on the amount of the claim. Now, I've touched on that because we do that as a training session for yourselves, but it might be quite some time before you actually have to report a claim. It could be, you've gone through a year and you're a fantastic loss ratio because you haven't had to make a claim. So quite often people think, oh gosh, I know how to quote and buy and sell loss recovery insurance, but what happens when you actually have to report the claim? And that's where I'm now going to bring in Gaynor, because she is going to talk you through FNOL and how to report that claim online. So I'm going to pass you over to Gaynor now, and if you want to take it away, Gaynor. Okay.
Hello, thanks everyone for joining. Just very quickly, there are a couple of things that we ask for you to do before you report the claim to Lorega. First of all, before notifying us of a claim, if you can make sure that the underlying insurers have been notified of the loss. When I say underlying insurers, and we do use that term a lot and it does confuse a lot of people, we basically mean the insurance policy that the Lorega policy is attaching to. So for example, if your client has a policy with Aviva, Aviva is what we class the underlying policy. So in the event of a claim, we would ask you to notify Aviva, for example, and then obviously you can consider the Lorega policy. There are a couple of triggers to the Lorega policy before it's able to respond. One of them is that there is a valid underlying claim, i.e. Aviva have either accepted or in your experience are likely to accept the claim that you've presented to them, and also that the claim is going to exceed £5,000. Once you're happy that those boxes have been ticked, you can then go on to Lorega Online to submit a new claim to us. So when you log in, you'll be presented with this dashboard. And as you can see, the option there in the top right-hand corner is submit new claim. So we would obviously ask that you click on that, and that will take you to the next page. There are 3 pages in the process of submitting a claim. Obviously, for the purposes of this, we've had to split one of the pages that's the longest one into several pieces, but there's basically 3 pages for you to go through. First page, now this is where a lot of people get stuck. Date of loss is quite self-explanatory. You can click in the box where it says DDMMYYYY, and that will basically bring up a calendar for you, so you can select the date of loss from that, or you can free type it in. This is the bit where most people seem to struggle. We need to now search for the Lorega risk. You can do that either by using the policy ID or by starting to type the name of the policyholder. If you transact your Lorega business using Lorega Online, the policy ID will be the number it will show on the certificate that's been produced by your underwriters. Just as a warning, if you transact Lorega using Acturis, Acturis produces its own risk ID. Our system won't recognise the Acturis risk ID. You will go around in circles forever and a day if you try and use that. If you use Acturis, you will have to use the name search method. If you transact via Lorega Online, you can use either the name search or the risk ID search. If you start typing in the name of the policyholder, we need at least 3 characters. You can continue beyond the 3 characters. Obviously, the further you get, the more likely you will be to narrow down to the policy that you're after. You will basically be presented with a list of the policies that match the name as you type it in. The top one is going to be, once you're happy that you've found the right risk, the top one is going to be generally going to be the current or most recent risk on the system. So you will need to physically just click and select the risk that you want from the list. That will then infill into the box, and you'll be able to proceed on to the next page. Probably just as a tip, if you've got a name, obviously we've got Liz and Ivan Maxwell there as a suggestion. I would probably be inclined to start typing Maxwell rather than Liz and Ivan, because it may not be on the system as Liz and Ivan. It may be L and I Maxwell, and obviously by typing Liz, that's not going to show any results. If when you get to this stage, if you get stuck and you cannot find the risk that you are after, please give me a call. Either myself or one of my colleagues, probably 99% of the time, are able to find the risk and point in the right direction. You can then continue with the FNOL process. Just also a little bit of background information, as I'm sure you'll appreciate, you are only going to be able to access your own brokerage's risks, because obviously you don't want other brokers seeing your risks and vice versa. There is a box that potentially we need to tick if you are a broker that has multiple offices, and as a claims department you have maybe got an area claims department that covers multiple offices. It might just be that I need to go in and tick the box to make sure that you can access the other branch's risks. It will be set by default to make sure that you see your branch's risks, but sometimes the box needs to just be ticked so that you can see your other branch's risks if you're responsible for reporting their claims. So again, if you struggle and can't find the risk, give me a call, we can get the box ticked and you can move on and go from there. We can go on to the next page, please. So when you've typed in the date of loss, the LAREGA notification period is 14 days. Once we hit the 15th day, we don't turn around and say, no, we're not dealing with it, but you will get a box on the notification, basically just to ask for the reasons for the late notification. A lot of the time, it's probably going to be either because your policyholder hasn't notified you straight away. It might be that there was an issue with the underlying insurer's cover, and therefore you've only just had admission of policy liability, i.e. the insurers, if we go with Aviva again, have only just accepted the loss, so you weren't able to notify it initially. It might be because you're waiting for confirmation that the loss was going to exceed the £5,000 trigger. So just a brief explanation in there. We just need that for audit purposes, just to make sure that it's okay for us to accept the claim. You won't be able to proceed any further. If that box appears, you will need to type a reason in there. You will not be able to proceed to the next stage without filling that in. But you can see, I think, between the box and the box entitled risk details, there is a warning that's come up to say that because it's outside of the 14-day notification period, a reason needs to be given. So you will get a prompt. Likewise, if you choose the wrong risk, you'll get a prompt to say that the loss date does not fall within the risk period. Again, in which case, give us a call and we can just investigate into that and make sure that it's being allocated to the right risk. You'll see there the risk details box just underneath the box for the referral. You don't need to type anything in there. This pulls from our back system, and it basically just gives the details as to what the trigger is and what the LAREGA policy start and end date, etc. are. So there's nothing for you to do on that. You can just ignore that and carry on. Once you've filled in the boxes, you should just be able to click next, which is just on the left-hand side, and it will take you to the main page, which is where we capture the claims details. You just go on, Anne.
Just before I do, there's a chat from Tina from Marlowe Gardner and Cook, just asking the question about brokerability claims. Yes, they are actually notified in this way as well on the system. So we can chat further about it, Tina, as we as we go along. But everybody in your team should have access to FNOL, whoever is potentially going to notify a loss. Sorry to interrupt you there, Gaynor. That was just something mentioned.
So we then now go on to the main claim details page. This is probably looks a lot more familiar. It's probably very similar to your own systems or insurer systems if you report claims online to insurers. And this is basically where we're capturing the information that relates to the claim itself. So the claim category, that shows on cover, that, as I say, infills from our system. Incident type, you'll see that there is a drop down there with numerous perils there. So if you're able to pick the one that best applies, if you don't find one, and you should do, if you don't find one that matches the peril that you're after, there is an option for other, and then I can have a look at it and see whether there is a peril that matches. But most of I think all the main perils are there, so you should be able to select one from the list there. Claim reference number, this would be the insurer's reference number. We appreciate you might not have it when you're notifying us if you're doing that immediately after you've notified the insurers. If you have got it, it's handy to have, not the end of the world, and it's not a mandatory field, so you can ignore that and carry on if you don't have it. Broker reference number, this would obviously be your reference, your file reference. Again, not a mandatory box, but it's quite handy to have because obviously we've got that to quote if we need to contact you regarding the claim at any point. Obviously, it saves you time in the long run because there's a reference quoted. You're not then spending time on your system trying to search for the claim. Claim notified to broker box. Now, this is a mandatory field. This is just asking for the date and the time that the client notified you of the loss. It's there really just so that we can, management information to a large degree, I guess, but it's basically just to see, get an idea as to when you were told about the claim, and obviously in comparison to when we're being notified of the claim. Initial reserve estimate. Again, this can cause discussion, shall we say. We appreciate at the time of notification, you're not always going to have a clear picture of the value of the claim. We're very much reliant on your experience and expertise to be able to put your best guesstimate there. It might be in discussion with the insured has said, this item that's been damaged or lost or gone up in flames was bought a year ago for £100,000. You can probably be reasonably sure then to replace it, it's going to be at least that again. If you don't have an idea of the value, but you are as satisfied as you can be that it is going to exceed the 5,000, but haven't got any more detailed information, if you can just put 5,000 in there, that will be enough just to obviously allow us to get the policy triggered. Broker description of loss. Obviously, on this particular example, storm is the cause. It's quite handy if we can have a little bit of extra information in there. Storm is fine, but actually quite often there's you know, it might be a case that you know, the for example, the roof has failed. It might be that insurers have said, actually, we're not replacing the roof because we consider it to be wear and tear, but we're agreeing to consider the resultant damage. Any extra information you can give us in this box is really handy to have, both myself when I triage the claim and also for the adjusters when they get the initial notification. It's also the place, it would be handy if there is a particular request, i.e. you want to be present at the adjuster's site visit, if you want the communication to be made by yourselves in the first instance, if you want to be CC'd in on all the communication to the insured, if you can include that in that box, that is really handy to have, because obviously it makes sure right from the start we know what we're dealing with, we know who wants to be involved. Some brokers are very hands-on and want to be at the site visits. Others are happy just to step back and let us continue. But if there are any specific requests, if they can be mentioned in that box, that's really handy to have. We can just go on to the next page. Say this is still one continual page on the actual FNOL system. We've moved on now to insured details and contact address. Insured details, that is going to be the person that in the first instance we are going to be contacting to get the claim progressed. As you can see there are mandatory fields. The Christian name, last name and phone number are mandatory. In an ideal world, an email as well, please, and also a mobile number. It doesn't specify in phone number whether it's mobile or landline. If you've got both, put both in there. Mobile is always really handy in preference to a landline. If you imagine if your client has suffered a large fire, chances are they're probably not going to be sat at their desk on the landline when we try to make contact with them. So a mobile is always better if you've got it, but you can put both in there. And the more we've got, obviously, the more ways of contacting them, the better, because it speeds the process up. If they're not available on one, we've got others that we can then defer back to. Contact address, this is going to be the postal address that we would correspond with the insured should we need to. We send out satisfaction surveys at the end of all our claims. This is the address that satisfaction survey would go to. It might be for a smaller client that the contact address is the same as the lot address. It doesn't always follow. If you've got a larger client who maybe has a head office, that would be the contact address. The lot address may well be one of their other sites. Again, with a property owner's policy, the chances are the lot is going to be at one of the premises the insured has no, does not live in. So therefore, the contact address would be the address that we would write to the policyholder. Just as a tip on that, you can see there at the bottom, you've got postcode. You can either free type in the contact address, or if you go to the postcode box, if you type the postcode in, click the search button, It will give you a drop-down menu of the addresses that are found under that postcode. You should just be able to click on the correct one, and that will backfill the rest of it. It's just a bit of a time-saving tip. Go to the postcode first, and then obviously it will infill the details backwards. Same on address of loss with the postcode. You can type in the postcode and select from the drop-down which address it is that you're after. Just a note on the address of loss, it's really important that this is correct. The allocation of claims is based on the postcode area, because obviously we want to get the adjuster who is nearest and therefore quickest to get to the loss. If we've got incorrect address details, we can either be instructing the wrong adjuster. I might instruct an adjuster who covers the Scotland area where actually the loss occurred, because that's the postcode we've been given. Actually, the loss occurred in Devon, which obviously delays matters. Also, we don't want the adjuster going to the wrong address. Sometimes we get slightly incorrect postcodes given. Obviously, the adjuster will go by postcode. We don't want him to be driving around. If he's got a 10 o'clock appointment with your client and the adjuster, we want him to be there in time for that, not driving around looking for the address. So it's really important to get the address of loss correct. We can go on to the next page. Broker contact. Once you're logged on the system, you will be able to just go in and click choose from existing contact and basically scroll down a list and search for your details. If you are reporting the claim but you're not going to be the contact on the claim, if you're reporting but then obviously a colleague is going to take over the day-to-day handling of the claim, you should be able to locate their details within the drop-down list as well. If you can't find it, you can just free type their details in there if they're not registered on the Lorega system, but hopefully they will be. Obviously, the more contact details we've got, mobile numbers, office numbers, etc., the better, because the quicker we can get in contact with you should there be a query. Once you've done that, you'll then press next and go onto the claims documents page. Now, for the claims documents, obviously ahead of a claim, we don't have your client's cover details. So we're reliant on you to send us the underlying insurer, again, that phrase. In this case, we'll use Aviva. We would need Aviva's, the schedule that covers the date of loss, the associated policy wording, and also a copy of the Lorega certificate that covers the date of loss. They're the three things that we ask for as a minimum. If once we get a claim through, any of those are missing, we will be emailing you to say we need those before we can proceed. Whilst they're the minimum documents that we need, it's also really handy in this claims documents page to be able to upload photos, if there's photos of the damage, if there's any estimates, if there's any pertinent correspondence from insurers that we maybe need to be aware of ahead of the adjuster making contact, you can upload them in there. Two ways of uploading. You can either click on the orange upload button, that will then do a search of your desktop to be able to find the file, and you can just upload it as you would upload a normal document. Alternatively, you can drag and drop, and I find that quite handy. If you've got the document in an email or on your desktop, you can literally just drag and drop it into the documents page. Once you've done that, you can then click, what does it say, refer to Lorega. Now, you've got two options when you've basically got to the end of the claims notification system at this point. If the claim is being notified within the 14-day notification period, you will get a box that says submit to Lorega. If it's outside of the 14 days, it will show us refer to Lorega. It makes no difference from a process point of view. We will get an email to say a claim has been notified. We then go in, triage it, and obviously assuming that the boxes are ticked, we will then pass that to an adjuster to make contact. It makes no difference to say to the actual handling of it. It just, you will see two options dependent on whether it's within the notification period or outside of the notification period. If we can just go on to the next page. Now, we do ask that claims are reported via the FNOL. It's not a long process to report the claim online, but obviously you might have one claim that you're reporting and it might take you 5 or 10 minutes to actually do that. If the claims are coming in directly to me to manually input, you might only have one claim, I might have 10 to do. And obviously if I'm sat inputting claims, that's going to delay the allocation of adjusters. There will be occasions, however, as a caveat to that, there will be occasions where, if, for example, we get a bordereau from you of renewals, the policy is just renewed, the bordereau perhaps hasn't been updated or we're still waiting for it, the risk may not be on the Laurega site for you to be able to pull through. If you can ring us first or email us to say you're struggling with a claim or struggling to find the risk, 99% of the time we can probably sort it with the press of a few buttons from here and you can continue the process. If, however, we draw a blank and either the system is having a glitch or the risk isn't yet showing, then I will need to manually put the claim on. But as I say, please contact us first. If I agree that yes, we can do it that way, we've exhausted the avenues open to us to try and get the claim on from your end, then I can send you a notification sheet, which basically asks the same information that we ask on the online portal. And if you send that back again with the underlying policy documents, so the schedule, the wording and the Laurega certificate, plus any photos, estimates, etc., I can manually get it loaded and we can get an adjuster instructed from there. As I say, this is really a last resort because it's quite time consuming if I've got everybody's coming in to try, and particularly on a surge event, to try and keep up with them. And obviously we want to be getting adjusters out sooner rather than later, rather than me doing the admin to try and get claims actually on the system. And I think that is pretty much my bit on that.
Right.
Yes, well, after the event.
Yeah, I will just have a quick chat about after the event service, because obviously some of you who are on this morning, you will have clients who haven't actually purchased a loss recovery insurance policy. So how do you report a claim if it's an after the event, if literally they need help for property or liability claims, which obviously we don't do liability under the policy, but we do have a liability expert on the panel. So it may be that the after the event service is exactly the same as loss recovery insurance. However, it's fee-based. The client has to pay either an hourly rate or a percentage of the agreed loss for that service, and that's to be agreed and discussed with the adjuster who will contact your client. But again, you may want to know in a little bit more detail, which Gaynor can just tell you, what do you do, how do you report an after the event claim to Gaynor?
Hello, me again. So with an after the event claim, obviously because there's not a Laurega policy, you're not going to be able to report it online. So what we ask for is basically an email from you with details of the loss. We need to know where the loss is because that will dictate which adjuster it gets passed to based on area or expertise, details of the claim, and also your contact details. As a general rule with after the event claims, we will make contact with you as the broker initially to have a conversation, get an idea as to whether we can assist and what the potential cost might be. And then obviously you would then liaise with your client to see whether that's something that they're interested in taking up. We also do have an ATE notification form or an inquiry form. So if you want to drop me a line and say, we've got a potential ATE claim, I can send you the form back that asks for all the information that we need. And then if you get that completed and sent back to me, I can then get that passed to an adjuster to have a conversation. Any discussions regarding after the event stuff, it's no obligation. We're not going to charge you for making the inquiry to us. It's only if we actually take it on as a claim that we would ask for a letter of engagement to be signed. But as I say, we would have discussed likely cost, etc., in advance of that. So there's no cost in asking us whether it's something that we can assist with. And as Anne says, we can do liability claims on an ATE basis where obviously they wouldn't ordinarily be covered under the LRI policy. It's obviously a lot cheaper for your client to have an LRI policy in force than it is to pay the going adjuster's rate on an ATE claim. So as a selling tool, that's something worth looking at. But we appreciate that not everybody has, wants the Laurega policy, but we quite often find after they've had an ATE claim that a lot do then go on to buy them because they obviously see its worth and how cost efficient it is, because on the LRI there is no, once they've paid their premium on a LRI claim rather than an ATE, there is no additional cost to the insured, which obviously is quite a good selling point. Very
good. Thank you, Gaynor. I'm just going to wrap up. I think hopefully we've covered everything and why.
Sorry, there's a few questions. And
I was going to say yes. We're just going to do the learning outcomes and then we're going to the
great.
questions.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so hopefully you understand why Lorega is the right choice and the understanding how you process claims and you understand the benefits of the after event service as well. But we're going to open up now to the questions, because I know, Jess, if you want to coordinate those and then fire them at us, if it's to Gaynor.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so Janet is asking, do you provide settlement details once the claim has been completed?
Yes, in the insured obviously will agree a figure with the loss adjuster that obviously is then agreed by the insurers. We'd normally leave it that the insurers would provide the final settlement figures, because obviously they have their loss adjusters costs to add on that obviously we don't get involved in and we aren't party to. So we can certainly provide details of the final material damage settlement, but it wouldn't include any additional sort of disbursements such as loss adjusters, specialists, etc. So it would probably, to get an accurate settlement figure, I would still recommend going to the insurers for that.
Mm-hmm. What we do, if I can just add to that, with a lot of the brokers, we provide from the sales team what's called a Power BI report. And when we're looking at income for various offices or branches, and we always include the claims statistics. So you can look at individual claims either on a monthly or a quarterly basis, as and when we provide those Power BI reports. So if anybody's interested in those, then you talk to myself and we can get that set up for you.
Okay. Yeah, quite a few questions coming in. If someone has a loss recovery insurance policy already, but then has a liability claim, can they use ATE for liability?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, just contact Gaynor and she'll get the liability adjuster to contact you to discuss it further, to take details. And as I say, if they think they can do something, they will take it on board, but give those costs to yourselves and the client for that type of service. But as you understand, the loss recovery insurance is purely MDBI claims. Okay.
Cool. Then a couple of more process related questions. Lauren is asking, do you prefer we report within 14 days without the claim being accepted, or would you prefer we have the claim accepted before telling you?
We would prefer that the claim is accepted before telling us, but we obviously, how do I explain this? We're obviously conscious that you are not always going to have a policy acceptance straight away. And the idea of our service is that we get in there quickly and are able to get the wheels in motion and give guidance, etc., pretty much straight away. So we rely on your expertise to basically be able to judge whether you think the claim is likely to be accepted. If it's a straightforward claim, there doesn't look to be any warranties that maybe haven't been complied with, or any issues regarding an occupancy, and on the balance of probabilities you believe that claim is going to be accepted, report it then. The only time we would maybe ask you to hold off is if there is a query over cover and we are seeking, you're basically seeking insurers' confirmation that it is going to be accepted. But the majority of claims where there aren't any underlying issues and you look at it and think, I don't see any reason why that's not going to be accepted, tell us about those then. It's only really the ones if there is a question mark over cover that we might say, if you've reported it to us, we might say, actually, we do need confirmation of policy acceptance. But probably 95%, there isn't an issue on 95%.
You just tell us straight away.
We can get on with them. So let us know sooner rather than later. Always,
yeah.
Okay. Quite a few questions are coming in. We might not be able to do them all, but Karen is asking, will we share all the slides? Yes. Probably tomorrow or Friday, I will send the recording and the slides, as well as the user manual for FNOL and all the forms, like everything that Gaynor, all the tools that she's mentioned in the presentation will be attached to an email. There's a good question here from Lucy. What is the normal process after the claim has been set up? So will an adjuster be allocated? Will they contact the client directly? So what happens next?
Yeah, so once you've pressed either the submit button if it's within 14 days or the refer button if it's outside of the 14 days, I will get an email to say a new claim has been logged. I will then go into that and basically triage it to make sure that I'm happy on the basis of the information that we've got, that again, the claim is likely to be accepted and that it's likely to be above £5,000. Assuming that that is all the boxes are ticked, I will be basically sending it to an adjuster who will then make direct contact with your policyholder, unless you've used the broker description box to say that you want the initial contact to be with yourselves. As a general rule, it will be the insured direct, but it may be that the adjuster maybe needs to be aware of a little bit of background information. It might be, if you deem your client as being vulnerable, you may actually want the initial contact to be via yourselves or with your, coordinated between yourselves, the insured and the adjuster. But yes, it would go to the adjuster. They would obviously make contact with the insured. They would do the initial, any guidance, any advice that needs to be given would be obviously done by phone. They would then make an appointment to go and visit the insured. We generally try to tie in, it doesn't always work, but we generally try and tie in the adjuster visits with the insurer's adjuster visits, just because it makes sense. If there are any discussions that need to be had, if there are any tough questions from the insurer's adjuster, we want to be there on site to be able to handle those, to be able to assist the insured, etc., etc. So it tends to be, the visits tend to be tied in with the adjuster's visit, which we sometimes know insurers adjusters aren't as quick as they maybe should be going out. So the chances are there will have been discussions already between our adjuster and the insurer's adjuster, that it makes sense for us to try and tie those visits together, if that makes sense and answers the question. Cool. Have you anything to add on that, Anne?
No, I think that's pretty straightforward. We've got quite a lot of questions, Gaynor, so we'll try and get
I think this one is quite important.
Yes.
Tina and Lauren are asking the same question. So you mentioned that the policy only triggers once the underlying insurer has accepted liability for the loss. What if they don't and decide to turn it down? Are we still able to discuss this with,
right.
Like, can our loss adjuster assist with challenging cases like that?
Whenever, I'm going to say, whenever you're in doubt or there's an issue on cover, it's generally talk to our adjusters and they'll, they'll have an idea of what the next step should be, whether we can take it forward or not. That I always think that if you've got ever in doubt, any problems, pick up the phone and talk to Gaynor, and she'll know the right person to talk to you about it before we move on with the process.
Yeah, if we get a claim that when we look at it, the insurers have said we're not going to cover it because it might be an unoccupied premises, that maybe the perils have been reduced, the insured has then had an escape of water which isn't covered. You can see, we can see, the adjuster will see that is not going to be covered. We're very unlikely to get an admission of policy liability on that. There are quite a lot that kind of fall into the grey area in between, where the insurers will say, no, we don't think that a warranty has been complied with. And actually, you as the brokers and the insured are saying, yes, it was, and there is a discussion there. That kind of thing is pretty much part and parcel of the claims handling process, I would say, for the adjuster, if that's brought up during the process of the claim. If we are partway through a claim and the insurers say, actually, which does happen, actually, no, we don't believe that there is policy coverage here with the underlying policy. Once we've got to the point where that has been exhausted and can't go any further, we would step back from that. But obviously, in the meantime, the insured would have had certainly assistance with mitigating the loss, trying to get themselves back to a sort of a decent state, I guess. If, for example, it was a flood, chances are they'll have already had the initial restoration work, etc., done, the drying out, blah de blah. But yeah, it does happen where insurers will withdraw policy coverage partway through the claim. We will push it as far as we can, but there will come to a point on some claims where that
has to have a conversation,
and we would have to graciously step away then, obviously on the basis that the Lorega policy does require an admission of policy liability, and if that is taken away, obviously our policy no longer responds. But the reality is the client will have 99% of the time had quite a deal of assistance trying to get themselves back on track before that happens. If that answers that.
Thank you. Margaret is asking, sometimes they have several contacts, like property managers, where the insured is the client, but the property manager acts on their behalf. Then you have adjusters who have delegated authority up to a certain limit, who will then report to their own adjusters. Do we include all these contacts? Does that make sense?
You can either, there's only place for one contact. So anything like that, either include it in the broker description of loss box. That's probably the best place to put it. Otherwise, send me an email. You've got my contact details. Send me an email setting out all the details, and I can let the adjuster have that when I instruct him. Probably the best place to put any additional details is the broker description of loss, because that will automatically come out on the instruction that I send to the adjuster. So it's not a case of me sending it to the adjuster and then an hour later getting the information, because then potentially he's probably already made contact. So probably that box is as good as anything. But this is where the description of loss box is useful, because any isms that there are on the claim, you can obviously let us know, so we can let the adjuster know right from the outset, so he knows what he's dealing with.
Okay, and I'll take this last question. After this one, if you have any others, please just reply to the email that you'll receive in a couple of days, or email Anne or Gaynor directly. But Lucy asks, will you only deal with the main claim for the incidents or the claim as a whole? For example, fire to the building, but then the client has public liability claim from neighboring property and business interruption.
We only deal with material damage and BI. We don't get involved in any liability claims. So we are concerned with, our policy is to basically try and get the best settlement for the policyholder, not for anybody else. We don't get involved in liability claims. So as per the example, a fire, if a fire has come from a neighbouring property and damaged the insured's property, and there's a subsequent BI claim, we would deal with the policyholder's material damage. We would deal with their business interruption claim. We wouldn't get involved in subrogating against the neighbour where the fire started. That would be something that insurers would do. Likewise, if the fire started in our client's premises and spread to a neighbouring property, we would deal with the client's material damage and BI. We wouldn't be involved with the third party damage. Does that make sense? Is that?
Yeah.
Sorry, people keep asking me questions. We're gonna have to stop at some point. But if a broker has a general query not relating to a claim, are they able to ring one of the loss adjusters for a second opinion and ask for advice?
If you can come through the broker relationship team first. So myself, Tina, if you need to talk, and then but as see again, it's probably Gaynor, so because it will be relevant to the adjuster in the area, or that expertise, if you like. So, but yeah, just contact one of us. We're all there to help. So so any problems, just let us know.
Yeah, as well as the field adjusters, we do also have qualified adjusters who handle things in the office, if that makes sense. So if there was a query like that, it would potentially go to one of them to have a look. And certainly, you know, if you've got issues or queries, that's something that they can take a look at and try and give assistance.
Great. Well, if anyone has any questions, you can either reply to the email you received this morning. It'll come to myself. I'll forward it to either Anne or Gaynor, or you'll receive the slides soon with the contact details. Feel free to email any of us with any additional questions. But yeah, otherwise, that's all with the questions right now.
And thank you, Jess. And I'd just like to say thank you for attending this morning. I hope you found it useful. In around about 6 months' time, we'll probably do another webinar, because there's always updates on our system, improving the notification processes. So Gaynor and I will probably come on board later in the year and do an updated version of this session. Or if you just forget anything, we can do it again if you haven't had any claims notified. And finally, just to say thank you for attending. The Lorega, we are on LinkedIn. If you want to follow the Lorega page, that is a great page which keeps you up to date on everything that happens within the Lorega, whether it's new people, whether it's claims people, sales people, or some little hints. And Jess is constantly posting little tips on their case studies and the like. So just keep in touch. Just press the button, follow Lorega page on LinkedIn. We do have a Twitter account as well, but I don't quite understand Twitter, but I'm sure you can join the Twitter page as well. So thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it and you found it useful, and we'll see you again.